Hey, everybody. It's good to have you back with us. Penny Reed here with Trent Watrous.
Good morning, Penny.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to talk with you. So, depending on what order you viewed these in, our first session together, we talked about compensating the team, taking care of the team. And now we're tackling this elephant called cash flow. And I'm honored, Trent, that you and your firm have been partnering with me to bring information, much needed information to our industry. So I'm going to kick it off. And I know we'll start with an easy one. And I would think that it's fairly easy from the standpoint that it's straightforward. The tax deadline and tax payment.
Okay.
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, that's a hot topic right now in our industry. So there's great news, Penny. We can put that topic aside from the standpoint to ease folks' anxiety. Everything that was due April 15th is now due July 15th on a federal level. So your federal tax return, that last 2019 payment, that first quarter of 2020 payment, all of that is extended to July 15th. So put that at ease. If you're worried about your cash flow and you're thinking, how am I going to pay this or that? Not due till July 15th. So we've got time out in front of us there.
Okay.
States are a little bit different. Each state has its own state laws about when taxes are due. We believe as CPAs and hope that the majority of those states are going to say, we're just going to mirror the federal, pay it then, but that's a state by state decision. And it'll come about in time. But instinct says most states are going to follow. So that's an anxiety that can be alleviated there.
Okay. And depending on the structure of the business, if practice owners are making estimated tax payments, has that next deadline for estimated taxes been moved as well?
It sure has. Actually, we're going to see the first and second quarter. So your April 15th and your June 15th will get moved to July 15th.
Okay.
Yeah, that will really help on the cash flow side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then if in the rare circumstance, right, someone was going to get a refund on their federal return, would you encourage them to go ahead and file, I would think?
Absolutely. Great point. Okay. If you're going to get a refund and you already know it, file as usual. You'll get that check sooner. And don't wait till July 15th. Go ahead and get that. And I think most CPAs are going to be much like our firm in that if we've got your data, we're not waiting until July 15th. We're going to go ahead and get that turned around. Right. And as the capacity of CPA firms recover from the crisis and get work, many people will go ahead and file.
Sure. And then what if they've already refiled and for some reason decided to roll the money over to the next year? I mean, what if they have filed? Can that be refiled?
And that refund claimed? Great question. I'll know more soon.
Okay. Okay. But I think we're talking about a small percentage because usually people, like business owners are not expecting gigantic refunds. So,
no.
All right. So let's talk, and I'll let you start wherever you want. It's like, all right, cash flow, how do I pay my bills and how often? I don't know if you would like to go there next.
Be glad to. So what's important right now, Penny, is that practice owners take their eye off the profit and loss statement. That profit and loss statement is going to be significantly impacted during this time that they're all in, quote, shutdown mode. So the metrics that we measure by are going to be skewed. Where they need to be mentally and visually focused is right on that cash account. They want to focus on how do I get cash into that account and how can I control cash going out. So one of those control ways would be make a list. Who do you owe, how much, and when is it due? And work that list. You may be reaching out to some of those vendors. You may be reaching out to some of those creditors and saying, I need to forego or defer a payment, or can I make a smaller payment than what's due? They're not forgiving the debt, they're just deferring the payment. So knowing how much cash you have and when items are due will be a great help towards planning that cash flow and keeping it in. I'm recommending to people, don't write checks or make payments more than once a week. I would prefer it be every other week. Why? It gives you more time to focus on what's in your account, what do you absolutely owe, what have you not talked to a creditor or vendor about, and how can you preserve that cash for the greatest amount of time.
Right.
I would say to people, hey, while you're shut down, get that office manager in, or you yourself as the owner, work those receivables. Call patients that have a balance and say, can I get your credit card number, or work out a payment plan with them. Do what you can to get cash into that account. Claims that are outstanding, call those insurance companies, see if they need an x-ray, what's the holdup. Do everything you can to make payments come in, because you're going to need that cash.
Absolutely. Yeah. And continue to send out statements. And I've had some offices, we actually, with one of my clients, we did a training call the other day, and I said, look, I think you want to be a little bit gentler maybe when you're making those calls, but you don't know what the financial situation is of the person that's calling. Mainly you're curious to be sure that they know they got this, that they do have a balance, and how can we work with you on that? And what a lot of, I know Care Credit's one of the more popular third-party financing companies. They get with Care Credit and have them send you the link over. Patients can go and actually, they don't have to already have Care Credit. So hopefully you've got a link on your site where patients can pay you. A lot of your confirmation systems may even have something where patients can click a link and do it on their smartphone. So I think that's hugely important.
It is. And Care Credit totally slipped my mind, the value there, being able to work out that balance, but it helps that doctor get that money in the door.
Absolutely. And would you also think that doing the bills once a week is helpful mentally? Don't you think if you're looking at that all the time, like if somebody's looking at that every day, that it just makes the psychology part of it heavier?
It does. That's a great point. Know the facts. A phrase I use fairly often is know your number. It pays to know your numbers. Get that list made and don't dwell on it. You know what the obligations are. Be that proactive leader right now who gets out ahead of this and makes those calls, because you may be able to scratch some of those off the list, knowing, hey, that person has said, don't worry about the payment till May 1st. Good. Draw a line through it, and that's one list that you need to work on right now. So your list may go down in size, but be that leader who addresses it, and then set a time in 2-3 days or whenever that is that you're going to make those payments, and then put it aside again.
Absolutely. And it makes me think of, for a lot of people, I'm going to throw something a little motivational in here, may not realize that in addition to How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie wrote a book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Now, I realize that there's a good bit going on that probably does need to be worried about for a little bit. But he talks about how to face trouble. And for anybody that's taken the Dale Carnegie course, this would be something that they would have learned. But, you've got to look at we don't want to focus on the worst, but you have to prepare for the worst. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? You make that list. Here's the reality. Prepare for it. How do we improve upon it? And I know when you and I talked, and I think that's being the proactive leader, I know you wanted to touch on whether it's real estate, leases, credit card debt. So if you want to start, it's like, all right, what can we do to minimize the impact right now, and maybe even come out better once we get further down the road? If you want to start with the real estate ownership and then also the leases, that'd be great.
Well, a phrase I use fairly often is that, look, real estate is not your largest expense, but it's your longest. And right now, your lease may define terms that during this difficult period may allow you to skip a payment. Talk with your landlord and tell them your industry is shut down. And because of the aerosols and this and that, you're not going to be seeing patients. So your ability to earn to produce income is going to be limited, and you might need to skip 1 or 2 payments. I think you're going to find most landlords are going to work with their tenants because they want you to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
But being that leader who looks at it and knows this is where I am in the lease, it may even be an opportunity for the landlord to say, well, can we negotiate terms? Doing that, again, leading the way. Retain a tenant-specific real estate agent who focuses on those leases, who doesn't represent the landlord, and can look at, are you above fair market, below fair market value lease, what perks might or might not be included in that. That can really impact your cash flow. But don't look at it as that first payment, because you may be signing up for 10, 15, 20 years of payments. So starting off on the wrong foot could lead to a long time of missteps in there. So get out ahead of it. Credit cards are a hot topic right now. Credit cards are a form of cash. So you have an obligation. Let's just say you have a $10,000 balance and you say, well, Trent, I normally pay it off each month. If your bucket of cash is low, working with that credit card company for terms that allow you to skip this payment or the next, or maybe make a minimum with no penalties, that's a great way to keep cash in your bucket. Hold on to that cash longer. But Penny, I would want listeners to know, initiating that call is their obligation. The credit card company is not going to call them. Being a leader who, as you said in our last session together, you said, look, they're been on a peak, but they're going to come out of that valley stronger, because while they were in the valley, they picked up on their leadership skills. This is the time. Let that kick in and get out ahead of it to protect that cash balance. So credit cards are one that I'm hearing companies are being very flexible, as long as you're in a good financial condition and standing with them.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, what about lines of credit? Pulling from those, asking for increases? What are your recommendations there?
Great question. Lines of credit are a great source. I encourage everybody to have a line of credit. You may have it on your home because you have a lot of equity, or you may have it through your business. Whichever way, have it in place. It's if you haven't called in the last week and spoken with your banker, today's the day. Today's the day. You want to make that call and start talking about, here's what's going on in the dental industry. We've got several more days, hopefully not weeks, of being shut down. And here's how we need to react to it with cash flow. I need a line. I've yet to hear of anyone being turned down. There's some great dental specific lenders out there, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, that are working closely with their borrowers. And each have a system in place that if you're an existing borrower, they're going to help you with payment deferrals. They're going to help, and it just gets added onto the back end of your loan. It skips now. They're going to help you with lines of credit. Again, as long as you're in good financial standing, that should not be a problem. If you've already communicated with them about some financial struggles, I would imagine they'll work with you, because they don't want your practice. They want you to succeed.
No, they don't. You're right. And I think those are great points too. And I have had clients, at one in particular, that mentioned one of those lenders and said, they've given me 90 days with no payment. Right. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And again, it's like what you're saying. It's not like, it's not debt forgiveness, right? It's just allowing you to not have some of those fixed recurring costs that you were having every month.
Right. I think it's a great opportunity to reach out and get ahead of it. The line of credit, several people have said, well, how long do you think I'll have a balance on it? Penny, I think a lot of our practices are going to come out of this crisis. The dentistry has not gone away.
Right.
It's still there. When this crisis passes, we're going to pick up. We're going to start performing dentistry again. We're going to earn that production and have those collections, and we're going to get these lines repaid. My feeling is that many people by year end are going to have zero balances on their lines, because they will have earned that money, because the dentistry is still there. The patients need to return when it's safe.
Well, and I know I've had some clients and then friends that are dentists that went ahead and pulled some cash out of their line of credit in the event that it, just because you pulled it doesn't mean you have to spend it.
That's right.
So
great point.
I think if you do wind up getting yourself in a situation where you did pull out more, well, then you can pay it back early.
That's right.
One other question, and I know some of these, the answer may be obvious, but I think that it's great. What is it in a situation like this? There's no such thing as a dumb question.
Right.
What if you own your building, and I mean, is now a good time to look at, if the terms are favorable, should you refinance that building, even if it means adding, another few years back to your business building mortgage?
That's a great question. Rates are incredibly low. I think we're going to see the rates stay low for a while. If you've got a higher rate note and you've been thinking, should I bet now's the time. And you may be able to keep the same term with a lower rate and your payment not change materially. Because if you're coming down from a much higher rate, given the lower rates right now, there may be a savings in there for you. But if you need to borrow a few additional funds to supplement you through this, real estate's a great place to do that. Yeah. So here's a great planning option that could come out of this challenge right now. And you know, a lot of areas, Penny, are seeing SBA loans that are very low rate. So if you're in one of those areas and you're impacted, start that process. Some of those rates look really, really good.
Well, and I heard on another webinar, I think I've been on more Zoom sessions in the last week and a half than I probably have so far this year, at least. Right. Is that some of those SBA sites are crashing because they're so busy. And I heard someone say that they were advising them to get online between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Yeah. In fact, I heard from a fellow last Saturday. He was up trying around 4 a.m. and it was a struggle because the system is made to handle volume, but the retail industry and the restaurant industry is so significantly impacted. This is, you know, an unprecedented level of volume for the SBA. So they're doing the best they can.
Sure. One of the things that you and I touched on earlier as well, which I thought, you know, this is where I think the power of collaboration and listening to what other people's thoughts are. I thought if Trent hadn't said this, I don't know that I would have thought about it. If you're in a situation where you're leasing space and maybe you don't have enough room and the space next to you is available, now might be the time when you're renegotiating, right? Because we will, again, we're not fortune tellers. We wish we could tell you, okay, it's going to be in 27 days, all of this will, no one knows, right? But if you have had a solid, sustainable practice that's been growing and you know that you needed to make some sort of change, I thought this was a great idea, right? To talk to the landlord about potentially acquiring more of that space.
That's right. I think for folks who are in this mode of expansion, landlords are looking to keep tenants. And if you're a good tenant and they've got space and they're wanting to lease it, you're saying, look, I'm stable. Go ahead, step on out there and say, I'd like to acquire a part of that space, add it on. You can renegotiate your current terms and add that in. I think there's a good planning opportunity. If you've got the right advisors on board, you could really come out stronger right now on occupancy in general.
Right with that. Thinking about one of the things that you touched on earlier, and I realize with most of these, you know, we are giving, and primarily Trent is giving general information. You need to get with your accountant. I would say, you know, double check with your own accountant before you take action. And we talked about this on one of the Dental Consulting Academy calls that I was on the other day. When you're looking at who to take advice from, you know, we would definitely say for this realm, Trent's advice, he's an expert. Be sure that you're not only checking with the experts, check with your accountant. Don't rely on the advice of a guy that made a post in some dental forum that you know, right? So, I mean, I would say verify the information with any of this. But going back to when you talked about a possible, you know, getting equity out of your home, right? Where would you put that if you were kind of trying to rank? Would that be a, you know, look at refinancing your business building, maybe line of credit? Would that be one of the last places that you would look to, is pulling that out of your home, or
good question.
How would you prioritize that?
So I like to keep business and personal separate. Whether you have a HELOC at home or a line of credit at the office, both of them are going to have an interest rate. So that's kind of a given. It doesn't cost either one to have them in place, meaning it's important that you have one, but you don't have to worry about the fees. If there's zero balance, neither one is going to incur a cost. Right. Then I would look at, it's simpler when your business stands on its own and you have a line of credit and it's protected. If you're looking at your HELOC and you're going to use it, I would want to make sure, very situation specific, that you were cash flowing before this crisis came along, and that you're not pulling out from your HELOC, that last source of liquidity, that if you haven't solved the cash flow problem in the business and you don't have a plan, adding debt to it personally is not going to solve it in the future.
Right.
Get the problem solved. But if everything's ho-humming along and great, it's just, it's on that economic engine, and you're like, I just decided I would finance it myself versus going to the bank, and you've got plenty of equity and the practice is stable, then I would be an advocate for that's a great source of resources.
Okay.
It's very situation specific.
Gotcha. That was why I was kind of wanted to throw that in there, because, obviously I think you are the expert, or we wouldn't be chatting here, but I think your own CPA knows your plan. I would also say this, perhaps if you don't have a CPA, and Trent did not ask me to say this, you need a dental CPA. If you ever needed a dental CPA, you need one now. So I'm sure they're all inundated, but you want to be sure that you've got someone that is really skilled at handling things like this, because some of these decisions will have some longer term consequences, and you don't want to find out about those on the back end.
I think it matters right now that your advisor has dental industry specific knowledge. I was speaking with a group earlier, and someone mentioned that a CPA had advised several dentists to file bankruptcy given the shutdown. And I think that's an example of, the dentistry's not going anywhere. This is not an industry this is not the buggy whip industry where there's no more buggies. This is
buggy whips, 2 for $1, right?
We're going to return, and the industry will be strong. I think there's other solutions that if you see the bigger picture of dentistry, you'll see, this is a hiccup. This is a speed bump on a long journey, and we're going to pull through. Cash flow will be fine in the long run.
Sure. One last question, because we addressed it regarding the team when we were talking about how do we pay the team, how do we take care of the team. What is your general advice for doctors that do have a 401k? When are you advising them to look at that to pull money out for their own personal needs or even needs of the practice?
The first thing I would do on a 401k is talk to your team. If you're going to pay them sick pay, PTO, accrued vacation, whatever you want to call it, you may want to stop that withholding on the 401k right now, because it does give the team more cash to take home to put food on the table. They may also want to tweak their federal withholding and minimize it for a little period of time, because of the impact of it's more about cash going home than it is maybe the federal tax payment at this time. I would encourage people to look at, many 401k plans do have that loan option out there, but take a loan, not a draw of funds from the 401k, because you're going to pay a penalty. You're probably going to pay some interest. Let's keep it on a loan and you repay that, versus incurring additional tax obligations because you took that distribution from the 401k. I am hearing folks who are saying, I think we're going to stop our 401k participation for a little while. Our employees are asking until this crisis passes, and then they'll participate again. They just would rather have the cash in their hand.
Sure. Gotcha. Well, any other things that I have not mentioned, any light bulbs that have gone off, or other things that you want to add before we wrap up?
I think let's jump into student loans just a second.
Oh, yes. That was one that I forgot. Student loans.
On the student loan side, the federal student loans are being deferred for a period of time. But if you've got a commercial lender there, make that call today. Before you make the next payment and more cash comes out of your bucket, do what you can. And if you can make the payments and your cash reserves are great, that's good. But if you're saying, you know what, I probably need to defer that, then make that call, find out what that looks like. Most lenders are really trying to find ways to prevent a default. So I think they're going to work with you. But that involves, again, that listener who is concerned about it, getting out in front, making a phone call. Don't wait.
Yeah. Great point. And Trent and I will be revisiting here in the next couple of days or so. I know there will be some other updates that will come out that that we'll want to share. And Trent, I just appreciate so much you giving of your advice and your time. And we just want you guys to know, you know what, again, we're all in this together, even though the details in our different businesses may look different, and we're here to help. And if you didn't get a chance to, on the survey, to give some input, or there were some questions that didn't get answered, do be sure and reach out, because that's our goal, is that we want to help as many people as we can in this. And let's try to get the business of dentistry back in good health as soon as we can, as long as our physical safety is there.
And Penny, I think from the coaching side, the way you work with practices, what you have invested in and helped folks create, they're going to emerge from this stronger because of that culture that you have put into place as a coach, and the systems they have will help them recover. And that's the beauty of reinvesting in your practice, which is why they have the Dental Coaching Institute as a part of their practice. It's going to help build that value in the long run. So they're going to get that ROI because of that involvement now.
Well, I believe so. And I think, as hard as all of this is, I can't help but think, and maybe it's because it's how I'm feeling, because this is not business as usual for either one of us, right? We're not we're not doing the work that we normally do. My hope is that when practices get back, even if maybe they were a little bit burned out, I think we're all going to have a brand new appreciation for being able to show up to work every day and do what we usually do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, thank you again so much, and for all of the help that you're offering to the dental industry, and for you guys tuning in. We thank you for your time and your trust, and we'll be getting more updates to you. Thank you.